here. As you can see, we got David Streeter, we got Kelly Stumphauzer, we got Nate Fisher. Just before we do our panel, want to give a shout out to our sponsors. If you are here and you're our sponsor, if you want to come up front here with me, if all the sponsors can come up here with me, we're going to give you 30 seconds, not 31, but 30 seconds to present. And Kim, do you want to go first? Oh, you want me to do yours? I mean, I can do yours. Kim does all my title work, at least all that I can convince people to give her. I love working with these guys. They're extremely investor friendly. They do all kinds of investor stuff for me. They've done the hardest deals. They solve problems. I love Kim. She's a rock star. Where's Brittany though? Because I like Brittany a little bit more than you. But I mean, look, Brittany's my girl. Like, what do you want? What do you want from me? Brittany and Kim are awesome and have a great company, Title Co. out of Middleburg Heights. Do you want to add anything?
We're investor friendly. We've been in business for 27 years, and if you need me, reach out.
All right. Thank you, Kim.
Hi, Zach Burkons with PB Free. I handle what nobody else likes to do, lead tests and local agent in charge. If you don't know what it is, you probably should come see me because if you own a property in Cleveland, it's going to cost you a lot of money if you go the wrong way with the city. So I appreciate the business that this group has given me, and if I can help anyone else, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Home Hop. You got to hold the mic close.
You were doing such a good job.
No, I don't.
My name's John. I'm the general manager for Home Hop. We do short-term rental management, property management. So we're on Airbnb, Vrbo, Marriott, Booking.com, and we have a direct booking website. We maximize profits for our investors while taking on all the responsibility. So make it really simple for you. We do have a referral program for $2,500, so we are taking on clients. So if anybody knows anybody, we're more than happy to help.
Thank you, guys. Home Hop manages all my Airbnbs. I have 5 in Ohio. They manage all my Airbnbs. They do a killer job, so I can't talk highly enough about them. FPS Supply, get up here.
Hello, everybody. Kevin with FP Supplies. We supply materials, primarily HVAC units, cabinets, flooring, and appliances. And most of our customers are folks like you, investors, property managers, flippers, contractors. I have some information packets. I'll be here all night. Would love to talk to you and help any way I can. Thanks.
All right.
Hi, I'm Matt, owner of Green Earth Dumpsters. We do roll-off dumpster rentals, clean-outs, anything you need basically around a construction project or a clean-out, property clearing, stuff like that. Just call me. We can also do load and goes if you have a smaller project. I'll just show up and you can use a partial dumpster if you plan ahead. Come say hi in a meeting, get my phone number. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate you. We also have David Streeter, who is a sponsor. He's going to get plenty of time to talk later, and I'm going to talk about him. He does almost all my legal stuff. He can create LLCs. He's Mr. Eviction. I think they have the second or first biggest eviction firm in Northeast Ohio. So they do a ton of business. If you need advice on commercial deals, contract creation, you can do all kinds of stuff. Streeter's your man. And the nice thing about Streeter, too, is if he can't do it, he knows somebody who can. So I've called him for legal stuff several times, and he wasn't the right guy, and he gave me the right guy. So he's a problem solver. And we're glad to have you on the panel. All right, now about the most important people in the room, me and Kaz, right? Well, Kaz at least for sure. My name is Isaac Rowe. I have a company called Heartwise Home Buyers. My investor-facing company is called Heartwise Investments. I just do a lot of off-market deals. My brother Sam is here somewhere. There he is right there with the awesome red hair and red beard. And he's super cool. He's one of my favorite people in the world. And he just does all the shit I don't want to do, basically. And makes my life way, way better. So he's been working with me for 4 or 5 years now. And he's the reason, really, I have a business and not just me and an admin. He's really helped me build a company. We do a lot of market deals, guys. If you're looking for stuff, let me know. I'd love to talk to you. Heartwiseinvestments.com. We get photos, videos of all of our properties, inspection reports. So let me know what you need and where you're buying. We're all over Northeast Ohio. Wayne Brooks is not here tonight, but I'm going to give him a shout out. He's down in Florida for his kid's birthday. And he is just a badass in business. Wayne's been doing this a long time. He does a ton of flips. He has a construction company. He does all kinds of stuff. Wayne is so smart. He's an investor-friendly agent. So if you need to talk to somebody in his business who knows what they're doing, Wayne Brooks is that guy. And then Nick Johnson, who's also not here, he's our social media guy. He is phenomenal. He's the only reason Investor Source. We just crossed 2,000 followers. We have nothing to do with that. Nick does all of it, basically. So any of the videos, everything you see, all the content created is done by Nick and his team. Love Nick. If you need somebody to work with you on the social media side, he is awesome. And we're very happy to have him as a part of the group. So Kaz, you want to come?
Hi, everyone. I'm Cass. I am one of the owners of Icon Cowork, so it's great to have everyone back. We missed having you here. So Icon Cowork is a co-working, networking space with private offices. So I call it a real estate culture hub. I love real estate agents, lenders, investors, inspectors, everyone here. So if you're looking for a space, whether it's an office or a co-working area or host an event, so we're here at Icon. I'm also a commercial real estate agent, so I can help you with obviously buying, selling, or leasing your property. And I'm also with NEO Innovative Consulting, and we're your investor-friendly lenders. So hard money, private money, DSCR, refis, bridge loans. If you need help with any of that, I'm here to help. And I'll introduce Jenny. She's not here. Her daughter is sick. But Jenny is a stager, a very talented designer and stager. She's designed Airbnbs, short-term rentals or mid-term rentals. She's also an agent who will stage a house and then she will list it for you, right? And she's incredibly talented, right?
Yep.
Here you go.
Yeah, I use Jenny for all my design and staging stuff. I bring her my flips up front. She meets my contractor there, does all the design from start to finish, does the design and the staging, and just all she wants is the listing. I'm like, why are you doing this for so cheap? She's phenomenal at what she does. So that's Jenny right there. She sadly is not with us. And then I want to go ahead and introduce our panel. So Nate, you want to go first? This is Nate Fisher. You want to tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
All right, guys. Is this one on?
Is that on?
Should be on. All right. So I'm over there. Look how happy and, how many dreams I had when I was a younger man. I have since lost that by being a property manager. So if you don't want to manage your properties, I'm happy to help you. I was an investor from 2013 to 2021. And in 2020, I started a property management company. We have been growing like crazy, and we use a lot of the same services that are here through Investor Source. I work with David Streeter on a regular basis. So if you have questions after the thing, feel free to come up and talk with me. I always love talking shop.
No.
I'm just going to check that mic real quick.
Sorry, guys.
Is there a button on it?
Oh, you got to turn the mic on, bro. You got to turn it on first before you start talking.
If you didn't hear it before, no more hopes and dreams, beard, gray hair, much fatter, and property management about the last 4.5 years. Happy to talk shop with all of you guys. Please come up. Property management really is a passion despite my dour attitude, and it's something that everybody really should have an opportunity to do. So let's talk soon.
Thanks, Nate. Kelly?
Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly Stumphauzer. I started as an investor 22 years ago. I do fix and flip, turnkey, buy and hold. I've done property management for several years. I recently sold my interest in one property management company. I'm closing on a brokerage that is going to offer property management services. I close on the 15th. I'll be rebranding that company and looking forward to bringing acquisition, construction, and property management services to the Cleveland market.
Streeter.
Again, you
Yes.
did such a fine job.
I know,
and
because I like you a lot,
So I'm David Streeter, the Streeter and Petropouleas. So we're a law firm in Strongsville, Ohio, servicing all of Northeast Ohio. Like Isaac said, there's 4 attorneys with us, 5 staff. We're geared up to handle eviction work. I always say we started doing evictions on accident. I worked with real estate investors, people like you in the room. My clients got more successful. They'd buy properties, needed to get, tenants out. And I kind of learned evictions by accident. And we've been able to grow, a good practice around that. My swing zone, what I love to do is work with investors on the transactional side. I don't sue people. I don't do any litigation. Only time I'm in the courtroom is for the eviction work. But what that means is I'll create your LLCs. I'll draft all your purchase agreements, help you deal structure, whether it's acquisition, disposition, it can be commercial, residential. Pretty much seen a lot of it. Used to own a title company. That's where I cut my teeth in the real estate space. My partner Jim is probably the guru when it comes to code violations. So if you get a Cleveland inspector looking at one of your houses and you catch a ticket, Jim's the one to call. I know a lot of you in this room have worked with him. There's a lot of familiar faces in here, but there's some new ones. So if I don't know you after we're done here, I'm going to stick around. So come up and introduce yourself.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate you. All right, we got some questions for the panelists here, and then at the end, we're going to allow you guys to ask some questions. So as they're presenting, a question pops in your head, make sure to write that down. We will give time at the end for questions. All right. So the first question here is: should you use a management company or manage the property yourself? Nate, you want to start off and give us your perspective?
Honestly, you could go both ways. If you're willing to put in the time and the energy, manage your own properties, especially if you're going to do low income. If you like to do the low income play and you're using a manager, I'm going to take all the extra money that you would have made with low income. So just, leave that to Emmerich. If you value your time and you have, the breadth of your portfolio, then it's time to actually have a property manager if you're local. There's a lot of benefits that come with having a property manager, but most of that, since you're local, you can get just by having a conversation with someone like myself or Kelly once every 2 or 3 months. So unless you're huge and you want to buy your time back, do it yourself. That's where I'm coming from.
Okay, Kelly.
I would say you have to decide whether or not you want to be a landlord or an investor. I think if you're owning properties, you're never going to be completely passive. Anybody that tells you that is lying to you. But I do think if you want to scale, it's important to be an investor and let a professional handle the management side of things. I self-managed when I first got started. I got up to about 3 or 4 rentals and I was ready to pull my hair out, and I hired a professional property management company, and then I was able to focus on buying better properties, renovating my properties, and working my investment plan. So I would say hire it professionally if you can.
Yeah, I definitely, with my own rentals, I manage my stuff in-house, but I have my brother and a full-time admin, and I have a maintenance guy. So I have the pieces that you really need. I don't do it myself because after 3 or 4 rentals like you, I was about to shoot myself in the face. I hated it so much. So I don't have that many units, but I do keep all my units in-house for now. But you can go either way, but it really is about time. It's like, what do you want to focus on? What do you want to do? I agree completely. David, we have some legal questions for you. So we're going to bounce around a little bit.
Wait, you're going to ask the 2 property managers if you should use a property manager.
Yeah, well, I mean, Nate said no, so he's obviously unbiased.
That's his little play.
All right, David, tell us.
That
He's just
yes,
playing
you should
mind
definitely
games.
use a property manager, because unless you love toilets, trinkets, and trash, forget it. Like, you're going to get the calls on Thanksgiving, you're going to get the calls on Christmas of a pipe bursting when there's a freeze. Property manager, plus it gives you a layer of separation, so you don't have to be the bad guy when your tenants are defaulting. You can let Nate be the bad guy, right? So you got good cop and bad cop right here. So we got a good panel. So I would say if you're investing in real estate, like she said, don't be a landlord, be an investor. Use property management.
Okay, cool. All right, Kelly, this question's for you. What are the top 3 tips for maximizing revenue on long-term rentals? How do you make your life easier and make more money in managing rentals?
Okay, so top 3. I would say a lot starts with the quality of your rental and the quality of your renovation. So doing a nice renovation job, paying attention to deferred maintenance. Obviously, the screening of a tenant, like the quality of your tenant is going to make or break the performance of your rental. And then I think on the long-term management side, it's who are you partnering with? Like, do they have systems and processes that are going to keep your property occupied and keep your vacancy down, keep your maintenance costs down?
Yeah, agreed. I agree. I am huge on screening tenants. I will wait a month or 2 if I have to get a quality tenant who's decent. If I'm not doing Section 8, which I do like Section 8 as well, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I also am a huge believer. If you're not doing Section 8, if you're doing make your units nice. Add vinyl plank flooring, add hard surfaces, make them so the tenants cannot destroy your units. Otherwise, you're just setting yourself up for a turn nightmare. Every time you have to turn the unit, you're going to lose all the money you made, if not more, and you're never going to make any money if you don't harden your units. And I'm huge as well on high quality property is high quality tenants, right? If I'm a high quality tenant, I'm going to want a nice property, right? China's looking at me because we're renting an 8-unit building on the Rain that has some rough, it's in a rough area. She's like, Isaac, this is a lie. You're lying to these people. Except for that building, everything else I have is nice, right? All right. All right, Nate, what are the 3 common pitfalls to watch out for when placing and managing tenants?
The first one is you cannot create a good tenant out of a bad tenant. If on day one they are yelling and screaming and trying to get everything that they can from you, that's not going to change 6 months down the line. 2, just like with the property itself, you're going to pay for tenant headaches, tenant turnover, property maintenance one way or another. You're either paying for it up front by getting a quality property in a nicer area where you won't have headaches, or you're paying for it every single month by paying your property manager to do a service call at elevated rates or to evict a bad tenant. Yeah, I'll just stick with those 2.
Okay, Kelly?
Which question are we on?
What are the 3 common pitfalls to watch out for? If you're trying to place and manage tenants, what are the issues you deal with all the time?
I think a lot of times people are in such a hurry to get their property occupied that they might loosen their standards for accepting a tenant. And I think you really need to be stringent in your standards. Like you said, I'd rather have a little longer vacancy to place the right person who's going to have some longevity and I'm not going to have issues with. Let me think. I mean, that's the main thing is just the screening, getting the right person in there and not being
agreed.
too, expeditious and just rushing the wrong tenant in the door.
I got to follow
Nate?
up.
Yeah.
Look at the goddamn IDs when you're moving someone out. Because I've made the mistake of putting someone in who was not the person on the application.
Wow.
That happens.
I've got another one. I'll say this because this is interesting. Everybody's coming from out of state. Everyone goes to HUD.gov and they see the Section 8 rates and they're like, I've got to get a Section 8 tenant because they pay X and the market pays X. And I try to have realistic conversations with people of that's great. And this is true. I mean, they do pay higher rent rates than market tenants generally, but you have to factor in that you're working with the government. And so you're going to have an extra 30 days of vacancy on the front end, and oftentimes an extra
more like
30
60.
days of vacancy, more like 60.
Yeah.
Going through the process of having your unit inspected. And then, of course, they will find something that, causes your unit to fail. And then you have to reschedule and you're having to deal with the bureaucracy and you're having to deal with. It's not that I'm against it, but it's definitely something to underwrite to. And I would say if you're looking to place subsidized tenants, you need to make sure that you're factoring those things.
Just a little tip on that side. I just placed a Section 8 tenant in Garfield Heights. I made sure when the inspector was there, my contractor was there. So the inspector mentioned some things. My contractor's like, no problem, got it. He passed us right away. And then we did the things after. We got a little lucky, but if you have a good contractor who's good with people or like a good manager, make sure somebody is there with the inspector who is going to help that process go smoother.
Also, if you guys don't know, there are several cities that have source of income protection. Cleveland Heights, University Heights, South Euclid, Wickliffe, and Lindale, as well as Akron. You cannot just say no Section 8. So make sure that you're at least accepting and at least giving those people a shot.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, cool. All right, so how do you reduce tenant turnover and keep long-term tenants in your properties? I know we talked about that a little bit. Any other thoughts on how to keep tenants long-term besides just getting high-quality tenants up front?
You should have properties that are safe, clean, and reliable. You don't need to be fancy. You don't need granite countertops. You don't need all kinds of craziness. You need safe, clean, and reliable. When they put in a maintenance request, send somebody out. It's much easier to just take care of maintenance in a reasonable timeline as opposed to dealing with tenant turnover. Be the landlord you would want, and most tenants will stay. Don't get overwhelmed and don't let them push too far on you, but be the person that you would want to rent from.
Nate, why don't you plug your maintenance company quickly now? It's a good time for you to do that.
So recently I came to the realization that I've got about 20 amazing contractors, and my buddy Brian Friedman has another 20 really good contractors. So what we're doing is we found that we're only using our guys about 60% of the time. I trust these guys. They give me great wholesale pricing. They come when I call. They are on the ball with the projects. They are following through. And everybody in here, I know that your pain point is going to be getting a contractor to show up, to give you a reasonable price, and to actually finish the job. Well, I've spent the last 4.5 years trying to find those people, and now I'm going to give you access to them. So my new company, Repair My Rentals, which is rmrneo.com. Hopefully we'll put that up on the screen a little bit later. I have the contractors, you have the jobs. Let's connect. I'll make some money. You have a huge headache taken off of you. I think it's a good win-win.
Agreed. Streeter, you want to grab this question? From a legal perspective, how can you protect yourself from being taken advantage of by tenants?
That's loaded.
All these questions are
How
loaded.
can you
man.
protect yourself from, I mean, if you're working with a, property management company, that's your line of defense there. They're going to do the screening. They're going to answer the maintenance requests. They're going to address any issues and concerns. And a good property manager is going to keep you well informed and communicate well. But I would say to protect yourself from being taken advantage of, like Nathan said, check IDs, make sure you know who you're dealing with, do background checks, and just stay in good communication throughout the entire term of the tenancy. Don't create an adversarial relationship. And one of the things I tell people up front is you kind of set the standard in your initial conversation, with the tenant or maybe a property management company. As an owner, that property is your property. You call the shots, you make the decisions. The property manager needs to follow your instructions. So you need to make sure that you interview whoever you're working with to make sure that you're on the same page. For instance, when I meet with, new tenants, I tell them, like Nathan said, my job as an owner, because I'm an investor as well, and we just have a few rentals and we self-manage them right now. My wife does the bulk of it, but we have the conversation. Our job as a landlord is to provide you a safe, clean environment in which to live. Your job as a tenant, this isn't almost like an employer-employee relationship. Your job as the tenant is to basically take care of my property and pay me monthly rent. Your monthly rental payment is part of my income. And I asked the tenant, so do you have a job? Yes. So what if every Friday you're supposed to get a paycheck and your boss comes to you week after week after week saying, oh, the furnace went out in the building, we had to replace that. I can't fund your paycheck this week. And then the next week, it's one excuse after another. I mean, you're probably going to quit your job, right, tenant? Yeah, I'm not going to work for that guy if he keeps lying to me. Same thing with the tenant. You set this up front. So if it gets to the point where you have to evict them, you tell the tenant going, remember, I'm not the one evicting you. You're essentially evicting yourself because you're crystal clear on the front end of what your expectations are.
I agree 100%. I tell all my tenants, I don't talk to them much, but what I tell my team is like, look, we treat every tenant the same. I'm not going to give you special treatment on the 6th day. If you don't pay me, we start the eviction process. That's our policy. It's nothing to do with you personally. That's how we run the business. I can't treat you differently because you have a difficult story, right? So you show empathy, be kind, and be strict, be fair and firm, right? These people will take advantage of you. They will take everything you give them and more. And I've seen people get raked through the coals for like 6 to 12 months by tenants who are just lying through their teeth about making stuff up. I mean, you cannot trust them. Just have a process, follow your process. Kelly, do you want to give us your thoughts? And I would say I've been using Nate personally for his maintenance company. So far, so good. I mean, I know it's brand new, but so far it's been great. So let's say that you're not using a major company. You don't. How do you manage maintenance issues with rental properties? How would you advise somebody to handle that?
It's been many years since I've self-managed, but I think that that's obviously an imperative piece of the business. So you better have really good contacts, and you better make sure that you have somebody that is accessible 24 hours a day, or at least emergency services, because right now it's 21 degrees outside and somebody's heat goes out. You are responsible for the health and safety of your property, and so you're going to have somebody to go over and address those things. I have done a lot of renovation work over the years, and it's really hard to find quality, reliable people. So I
Yes.
think that is something that I would spend a good deal of time and due diligence in making sure that you're hiring honest, reliable people who know what they're doing, and they're not going to go into your unit and create more of a hassle for you.
Yeah, like, I mean, if you know other people who have units that manage and self-manage, or you need to ask for contacts, because contractors will also steal from you. Outside of tenants, contracts are the next worst level. If you're a contractor in here, I love you. Maybe I might hate you a little bit as well, but contractors will take your money. They will steal from you. I'm not talking about every contractor, but there's a lot of contractors locally who are not honest people. They're not good people. You will find 7 or 8 bad ones for every 2 or 3 good ones, guys. I have lost 6 figures to contractors in the last 12 years, well over. All right. So just understand, I've learned all these, I've made all these mistakes. I've lost tons of money. These guys all have done the same thing, except even more. So just understand, you have to be very careful. You need to vet these people out. It's a relationship thing. Ask for referrals. And that's one of the reasons why people get management, because they try to do the contracting maintenance side and they can't. And they end up losing so much money that they hire a manager. That's one of the that's the hardest part of this, honestly. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, what are the current updates, David? This is for you. What are the current updates to the residents first policies and legal challenges regarding property management in Cuyahoga County? Anything updated? I know we did a whole event on that, so we don't want to go through the whole thing. But anything new that's popped up?
I mean, right now, I don't think anything jumps out at me as anything new. It's just we're in the process of the growing pains of what does it mean? How's it being, implemented? How's it being enforced? Is it being enforced? And we don't know that yet. We do know that there are a lot more inspectors out on the streets of Cleveland. I was talking, to someone earlier, and they're like, can't believe how many inspectors are out there. Like, we're catching violations when, we never had it for little things. So I think that's how they're going to start the enforcement of it. But, right now, I think we'll know a lot more as the, midsummer as this really gets into it.
Okay. Nate, did you want to address this question, or you?
Don't be a local agent in charge.
Don't be a local agent in charge. We do have a sponsor who's doing the local agent in charge stuff, so you can get him to do it. All right. So David, we want to ask a couple of legal questions here, just to get your perspective, and Kelly and Nate, you guys are welcome to chime in as well. But what strategies do you recommend for landlords to reduce liability risks in property management? Like, how do you structure things legally, safely, in order to reduce your risk?
You mean if you're an owner working with a property management company?
If you're an owner of property in general, like getting your leases organized, getting your system, like, how do you protect yourself from, getting sued or liability from
So you're going to want to start off, first of all, by making sure you have good documents in place.
And how would they get those documents?
Lease agreements. Well, obviously, talk to your attorney that's on your team. They
I
should
got
be
mine
able
from
to-
Streeter. Just a little plug for him. I
Yeah.
got my lease from Streeter.
I know.
It's very long. I've never read it all. I
mean,
think
the
I've read
leases
about
aren't-
3 sentences of it, but I trust him. So
Leases
we're
aren't
good.
rocket science, but in the lease that I use, I don't like sit down and type a new lease every time someone uses it. But my template that I start from is always evolving. So, you protect yourself with a good lease agreement. Then you have to make sure that you have, standardized, screening criteria for tenants. And you might get, if you're self-managing, you have to watch out for discrimination claims. The Equal Opportunity, the EOC, the Equal Opportunity Commission, they have, spotters out there. They have people that call you up and they ask you baiting questions to see how you answer. And if you answer the wrong way, you catch a claim. You probably want to go to a fair housing seminar to understand the fair housing rules so you don't get in that,
Yeah, but how do you not
pickle.
sleep through that seminar, though? That's the problem. I tried that once.
Well,
I mean, these legal seminars, David, are so boring. They're so boring.
If you commit,
That's why I have you, Dave. I don't want to go to the fair housing seminar. I want to call you.
So you use this all is going to go to, you can do all this, or use a good property management company that's going to have the documentation in place, have the screening practices. They're going to know what you can and cannot say to a tenant. They're going to be proactive. They're going to follow up on the property. They're just not going to place someone and come around in 12 months when it's time for a lease renewal. You're going to have good processes in place for rent collection. An online portal is the best way. Zelle is bad. I hate Zelle, Cash App. They're evolving somewhat, but once you get into a default situation and you get to the point where you cannot accept rent because it'll kill your eviction, you need to be able to shut off that payment method. Payment portals do that. Payment portals cost money. Good software costs money. That's why you work with the property management company. They cover all that overhead. So whatever you're paying them every month, and they all bill a little bit differently, but it's usually a percentage of the monthly rent and a placement fee when they place a tenant. If it's run the right way, it's well worth the dollars.
Yeah. And Kelly, do you want to address that question?
I was just going to say, like everyone here is an entrepreneur, right? If you're an investor, you're an entrepreneur. And so generally we're not detailed people, but I would highly advise you to make sure that you know what your lease says because
Oh, really? Whoops. Whoops.
Isaac, and I totally agree on the fair
That's
housing
Sam's job.
thing.
Bro, do you know what our lease says?
I mean, Cleveland is it's tough. It's very nuanced, and so it's very important if you're going to self-manage it, you understand what's happening in the city, that you understand when you're stepping over the line legally, and when you might end up in the Cleveland housing court system, like somebody up here is. You don't want to be there. So, yeah, I would just say know that information.
Yeah, agreed. So these questions kind of flow together, but Nate, if you want to address this one as well, what are the most common legal mistakes landlords make that you see, and how can they avoid them?
Oh, get that today.
Streeter?
Discrimination. I mean, that's the big one, right? Discrimination, on placing tenants. They don't understand fair housing laws. Things like source of income. You wouldn't think that could be a discrimination claim because someone qualifies for Section 8 housing and you say no because we don't exercise Section 8. But in the municipalities that have those laws, it's a form of discrimination. The other big mistake is not communicating or not responding, to tenants. You might have a bad tenant and they piss you off and you don't want to talk to them. But if the furnace goes out, and they may not be paying you rent, but if the furnace still goes out, you have to address that issue. You have to you have to fix the furnace. You still have a duty. Now you can go after them down the road for the money that cost or for the back rent, but you have to still fulfill your duties and obligations as a landlord. If you don't, you open yourself up to liability. Sometimes it's a criminal violation, so you end up in housing court, and it's usually because of an ego thing. That's why, self-managing is tough sometimes because you can't separate yourself from the drama. That's why a third party, using a property management company is good. Same thing, don't represent yourself in court. Only a fool represents himself in court. I've had, traffic tickets and that. I don't represent myself. I bring my buddy in or my partner or someone to do it because once you're personally attached, it's tough to be objective.
Let me ask you this, David. So I've done this a lot of times. I'll use a leasing agent to lease my units. Does that protect me from the discrimination in the sense that the leasing agent is communicating with the applicants?
I mean, it can, but at the end of the day, the buck stops with you as the owner. So you could get dragged in. I mean, you might have some sort of an indemnification, claim or provision, but I would think the leasing agent would be on the front end of that, but you could still get dragged in.
Okay. So, David, should you handle evictions yourself or hire an attorney?
Hire an attorney. I mean, I'm going to be honest there. I mean, since COVID, the eviction world has changed drastically with regard to regulation. It depends on what city you're in. Every municipal court is different. For instance, like in Lorain County, it was Lorain Muni and Elyria. They don't let a landlord collect late fees. Avon Lake just followed suit. I found that out this afternoon. I was in a hearing. So by working with an attorney, that attorney should know the local rules of the court. If you called me up and said, hey, I need a favor and I'll pay you 3 times as much. I have an eviction down in Columbus. Will you do it for me? I'll say no because I don't know the local rules of that court. You have to find someone local that's in the area to process your evictions and to handle them for you. And by working with an attorney, you don't have to do anything except show up and answer a few questions.
Okay. All right. This question could be for Kelly and Nate. What are the alternatives to eviction? If you're trying to avoid evicting a tenant, what do you do?
I mean, I know some people that do cash for keys.
Have you ever had success with cash for keys or no?
I have had success with cash for keys, yeah. And they have to be extenuating circumstances where you're weighing the cost of eviction and waiting out an eviction process. I like to have things systemized because it's the only way to scale. A lot of people will do like a rent payback program, right? Where you're working it out with a tenant where they can make payments every so often, but I don't know what your experience is, but it's rarely successful. So I think it's important to have processes in place that you follow along for every single tenant.
Yeah, agreed.
I have not had success with cash for keys. On day 5, late fees occur. The second Tuesday of every month, that's when you post your 3-day notice. And by the 15th, you talk to David, you talk to Jim, and you just get rid of them.
Yeah, I agree. And what you're hearing them say, guys, is systems. Like if you're going to manage your own stuff, you need systems and processes. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Unless you have 1 or 2 houses, right? Then it's whatever. But if you get 5, 10 houses, you need a system. You need a structure. You need to follow the rules, create a process. I'm not good at that stuff, which is why I would never manage my own units if I didn't have people who were good at that stuff, right? My natural gifts are not detail, like Kelly was saying. So I have had success with cash for keys, maybe because I'm so charming and I show up with my nice smile and I charm them out of the house. That's a joke. You meant to laugh, by the way. But I have it, and I do recommend it. $500 to $1,000. One time I paid $2,000 to get a tenant out because it was a squatter situation and it was super messy and they were professional and they just went from house to house and did this. So I knew they knew what they were doing. So I got them out. That cost me about $2,000. I've never normally it's $500 or $1,000 is enough. You're going to pay that anyway for the eviction. So the all-in cost of the time plus the fees. You might as well just give them some money to get them out, right? So okay. What do we got in the next slide, Cass? All right, so this is from Nate, correct? Yep. So Nate has, and I saw this sheet, guys, is actually really cool. Like, these are great tips. Everyone get your phones out, scan this QR code, the tips and practices for residential rentals in the city of Cleveland, all right? So this is actually a list of 10 tips. It's solid. It is solid. I highly recommend it. Especially if you're newer and you're trying to manage your own stuff, you need to be aware of this. Nate, do you want to address this?
Yeah, sure. So these are the small things that you're not going to read on Bigger Pockets, that you're not going to see in a fancy book. These are just the little eccentricities that I've noticed over the years in Cleveland. Stay away from 3 and 4 bedroom duplexes. Nobody rents them. Get a 3-bedroom house instead of a 2-bedroom house because no one's going to rent them. It's Cleveland. People need cars, so don't buy houses that have no driveways and no parking. Stuff that if you haven't been involved and haven't gotten into the nitty gritty, you may not know. It's just a couple of quick tips. Nothing too fancy.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Nate. Did everyone get this? All right, so we want to have some time for questions now. We really appreciate you guys. Want to give you guys a chance to ask questions. Who has a question for us? Raise your hand.
Hi, this is a question for Spear. What is your opinion on the set to income ratio screen? So say Section 8, you comment on Section 8, and there's certain cities that cannot deny them because of Section 8, but say they have no income, and they don't make a debt to income ratio, are you still allowed to deny them based on incomes?
So she's asking about debt to income denial for Section 8 tenants, a debt to income ratio, using that, and is that viable?
Well, it comes down to, like, in the income protected communities, you can't really use it. Voids debt to income, right?
So what I've been doing is I say you still have to have the same credit score. You
Yeah.
can have the same background. You can have the same background requirements. I just say you have to have 1 month instead of 3 months. Is that viable?
I mean, I think so. But I think if they're getting an additional source of income and they have no income, you have to add that into your ratio. But if with the subsidy, their income doesn't match it, as long as your criteria is even across the board, so a certain percentage of debt to income, and with the subsidized Section 8 subsidy, they still don't meet it, I think you can deny it based on that if you're consistent in your practices across the board.
Okay. Okay, cool. Does that answer your question? Yep, Kit.
Where do you find the counties that you have to allow Section 8? Is there a list somewhere?
There's not really a list. Actually, there is, but I don't remember where it is. It's from like some advocacy group that kind of says it. I know the specific places: Cleveland Heights, University Heights, and South Euclid, which is kind of spurious because their market rent is above what Section 8 will pay. So it's kind of like they're just patting themselves on the back to make them feel good. It's very annoying. Those 3 places: Wickliffe, Lindale, and Akron. So those are the places with source of income protection.
I'll just add on to that. It's really important that you're not putting in your rental listings, no Section 8. Like, don't put a big red flag on your listing.
Agreed. Agreed. Any other questions? What? Yep.
We're allowed to say that the house won't pass though, Section 8, right? We know that this house is not gonna qualify, it's not gonna.
No, I would not say our house will not pass a Section 8 inspection because the idea is that Section 8 is a minimum threshold for habitability. So you're basically broadcasting that you have a piece of crap house. And when you say no Section 8, if you're in one of those communities, the thing that you do is you might have to go through the process and ultimately Section 8 won't pass it. So it won't, you won't rent to them because they don't qualify because your house didn't. But don't be surprised if you're in the city of Cleveland and all of a sudden a housing inspector shows up at your property because there might be a chance that the Section 8 inspector gives them a tip.
All right. Any other? Yep. Right here.
Find a good collection firm. That's not us. We don't do the collections. We'll get the judgments on the second cause, but you're going to need to find a firm that does collections, and that's just not a collection agency.
Do you know any firms that you recommend, David?
So my number one competitor, they're our competitor, but we're friends. Powers, Friedman, Lynn has a very good collection. Yeah, they did what? Yeah, they do all the collections. They actually have really good systems. No, they took him. Yeah, so they get it. So
Okay.
Powers, Friedman, Lynn is good. You know, Weltman Weinberg is like probably the biggest quote unquote collection firm in town. They've been around for decades. I have clients that use them. A lot of times we'll get the judgments and then we just refer it over, to a collection
Okay.
firm. I'm going to give this to one of them, but because it's screening practices. And the question was, what information do you collect on the front end? So if you have to collect on the back end, what is it that you ask for?
Well, they have to be gainfully employed, obviously. So, I mean, that's another problem with a lot of the subsidy tenants. But I don't know what else here.
So from my experience, one, make sure you get their social security numbers, make sure you get their date of birth, full names, IDs, everything that could trace them back. And then yes, they need to be gainfully employed in some form of paycheck job. If they own from my experience, if they own a Smoothie King, I mean, I'm not going to walk in and start stealing the fruit, but there's no other way to get money from those guys. You can get garnishments on people who have paychecks.
Question over here.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for Cass and Isaac and looking out for taking time out of your schedule. I look forward to it, and I know it's not easy to put everything together. But, and I apologize if it's already the task, but my question is to the panelists: what software do you use? Which one do you like? And you use Excel, use Appfolio, use I don't know. And I know that's out there.
We use Appfolio.
I also use Appfolio. I do not recommend it because they're in the enshittification model where they're parsing everything out to try and make extra money. If I could do it again, I would go with Buildium or Yardi.
So I personally use Tenant Cloud. We found that recently. I think I've logged into it maybe once, so I don't know a lot about it. But my brother did all that. He screened them out, chose Tenant Cloud. We don't have that many units, so I'm not a property management company. But for self-management, it has everything we need. It's been good so far for us.
So what I do is I use personally last month's security deposit that goes, even if they look good in the beginning, but when they don't pay, it takes 60 days to get them out. So at least you have that money up front. I try to go 3 times the income, like my rent is 1,000, and I try to make sure that they have $3,000. I say person.
Good luck getting that.
You can have it. I'm for myself. I don't tell them. I'm just saying, I try to find good tenants like that. And then the last thing, you cannot like people who get starving income because you can't garnish those. So, and a lot of people lose their job. Then there's nothing you can do about the garnishment. So I just don't do everything. I try to raise the rent to the new tenant. I want to look at the about it. I collect their money somehow. So if I'm getting out there, you're getting money in Painesville, so the new tenants make pretty big market rate.
I have a counterpoint. I believe that it is our duty as landlords to let the next landlord know if this person is going to run away with their money. So even if I don't think that I'm going to get a penny back from them, I'm going to put that weight on their shoulders. I'm going to make sure that debt stops them from buying their next car, that stops them from ever owning a home. Because if you are going to steal from me, if you are going to put holes in my walls, if you are going to break my windows, if you are going to do unspeakable things with your cats, I am going to make sure that your life is as rough as you made it for me.
Note to self: don't piss off Nate. All right.
I always say I take someone interested. And if they don't pay anything, so that is, I would try to them.
All I can say is you must have rentals in very nice areas if you're getting first and last month and 3 times
Yes,
income.
that's true. That's true.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
So I'm not a proponent. I think collecting first and last month is a horrible idea. If you have a tenant that doesn't pay you, or a tenant that doesn't pay you and is destroying your property, and they don't pay you, but you're holding last month's rent, you post a 3-day in that first month in which they're delinquent,
They've
you've
already paid.
accepted money in the month in which you've posted a 3-day. It invalidates it. And I can't tell you how many times our clients don't tell us or don't remember they collected last month's rent. Tenant shows up in court and says, no, I paid, they were holding the last month rent. You posted the 3-day in September, which was the month I didn't pay, but I paid September. And we're November or December finally in front of the magistrate, and that case gets kicked out.
Start over.
Start over.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
well, Jay, I think you're changing your story to every tenant you talk to. I mean, we know, Jay.
All right,
Everyone
Jay. All
here,
right, Jay.
we
all
know,
right.
Jay.
We know you know how to make money, bro. We know you know
Maybe
how to
not
make
the best legal landlord tips
Yes.
there.
Question right here. Yeah.
Piggyback on that scenario, can you put a term in your lease that says that the last month rent or that security deposit cannot, basically, that security deposit cannot be used towards unpaid rent?
So the statute says that the security deposit can't be used towards rent. It can be applied to a back rent after the tenancy is terminated, applied to your damages sustained by the breach. But you can't put language in if you collect last month that it won't be applied to rent in a delinquency month, because it's just an accounting ledger and that's how the courts view it. So if you take money, it's marked as last month's rent. It's the last month in which the tenancy terminated, which might be when you exercise the right to terminate because of non-payment, not necessarily end of lease term. So
So what if we, again, that language is not last month's rent, it's just a security deposit?
that's fine then. Now, if you hold more than 1 month's rent as a security deposit, you got to pay them the statutory rate of interest on that month, on that month that's in excess of 1 month. So you have to accrue that rent and account for it in your disposition at the end of the tenancy. It's usually a few bucks, but you got to account for it.
We recently had a, this tell us that if you get a second car, that you can somehow buy the next person.
You know what? I've heard that recently too. This landlord in Columbus has been telling this to a lot of people. I don't know. I'm not a collections attorney, and so when it comes to those laws, I'm not sure. But to my knowledge, it wasn't collectible. But it maybe something's changed.
Is LLC registration still January 13th?
Nope, it's on hold. So you're talking about the BOIR to FinCEN. Unless an opinion came out in the last 24 hours. I've been checking it daily. Did something come out? Oh, you're shaking your head like, yep, I missed it. I'm set up on all the alerts. So right now, for the business owners in here, you don't have to do the registration. So here's the background. January 1st of this year, the Corporate Transparency Act came into effect, which was basically to combat, money laundering and, basically anti-money laundering and funding terrorism through shell LLCs and corporations. So Corporate Transparency Act said every business owner has to disclose the beneficial interest to anyone holding more than 25% or key business decision makers in that company to FinCEN. And that had to be done by the end of this year. Well, there's been lawsuits being filed, the first one down in Alabama, where the court found in favor of the plaintiffs, the business owners, but only applied it to that small class if you're a named plaintiff. Everyone else still had to file. Then on December 3rd, district court in federal court in Texas, a judge issued an opinion saying that the CTA is unconstitutional, that you don't have to do it, and it's off. There's an injunction against it until further notice. Well, the federal government, FinCEN, U.S. Department of Treasury appealed that right away, got expedited on appeal. On December 23rd, the Fifth District Court of Appeals issued an opinion saying, we reversed it, you now have to file. FinCEN then said, because of from December 2nd to December 23rd, we're going to extend the deadline to January 13th. Well, December 26th, on its own motion, the Fifth Circuit came back and basically said, whoops, we rushed this. We're going to put it back in place. You don't have to file. We're going to do a full review on the merits, allow the parties to properly brief it, and we'll do it. So right now you don't have to file, but that could change at a moment's notice.
Okay, cool.
So, to kind of prevent, discrimination and or the perception of discrimination, should you basically evaluate like the applications by the time of day when you come in?
First person past the goalpost gets first opportunity. So if whoever is the first person to put their application in, they meet all the requirements, you offer it to them first. If they, after a reasonable amount of time, don't move forward, you go to the next person who meets all the criteria. That's how I do it.
Any other questions, guys?
What were the two softwares you mentioned right instead of Apple?
I've seen people have a lot of success with Buildium and then Yardi. There's a bunch out there. Those two, you can get into them if you have less than 50 units. At Folio, you have to have 50 plus. And they do seem to have a strong enough user base that they're still innovative. I like those two.
Okay, awesome. All right, can we give a round of applause for our panel? We have a lot of knowledge up here, a lot of free legal advice there, a lot of free advice from years and years of experience and pain and success and all that stuff that goes together. So really appreciate you guys. Just real quick before I announce this, I want to say one more thing to plug myself because I'm a little selfish. I'm building a real estate team with EXP. Me and Jake, who's not here, are, and Vince and Corvia is right here. We're adding 2 agents in the next 2 or 3 months. We have our first agent on board. We have a ton of lead flow. We have crazy amounts of leads, and we need 2 or 3 badass agents who are going to come in and build with us. We do a ton of stuff off market. We're building an on market team. So if you want to talk about that, if you're an agent, you want to talk about that, you can talk to me or Vince, who's right here in the front, the very handsome bald guy right here, and with the very nice shoes. So, all right, next month, the second Thursday of every month, guys, we are here February 13th. Maximum ROI design strategies. We're going to talk all about design, staging, how to maximize properties, Airbnbs, rentals, flips, how to get the most out of your property, guys. So it's going to be a great event next month. It's going to be very beautiful. Lots of nice pictures of awesomely renovated properties. I promise, at least a few. And then we have the deal room in 10 minutes, guys. So the deal room, if you haven't been here before, the building, there's a room at the end of the hall right by the entrance door. And we're going to be in there. I'm going to be presenting some off-market deals. If you have off-market deals you want to present, you can also present them. It's not just for me to present my stuff. If you're a buyer, you want to be in there, we will show you the inventory we have currently that's for sale right now that's off-market. You will not find this stuff on the MLS or anywhere else. I don't put our stuff in the MLS. I do a lot of stuff off-market. So in 10 minutes, we'll be there. Okay, awesome. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you next month. Thanks for coming out.